any of you feel that the criticisms from various sources overlap with one another? Is industry, for instance, just as concerned about patient safety as physicians and patient advocacy groups might be? Do patient advocacy groups care about how long it takes for products to get to market in the way that industry is concerned about the time to market issues? Josh, maybe?
I can't comment on what patient advocacy group thinks, but I mean, from being in industry, we care a lot about what safety of patients. I mean, you know, there's, I think, a real effort to create and produce products that are going to help people. That's it's the right thing to do. It also makes good business sense, and it's. I certainly think that that's a fundamental aspect of probably everybody's perspective here. There's a lot of things that we probably all agree on, then we actually disagree on. And I think that the purpose, the good thing about doing surveys and research and looking at the historical data is it brings data to the argument, and as opposed to anecdotes. And I think it's easy for the public to kind of spin out over a device story that something went bad, and that does happen. It happens, you know, occasionally, but it isn't the reason to change overall policy. And I think what really matters is that what we want to see, I think what Americans want to see is safe and effective products that can improve their health and to continue and to allow the system to survive that is capable of producing those products. And I think that you know, it's in the FDA mission statement as well. So there really is a lot that we do agree on, and I think that we just have to find that balance. From my perspective, over the last couple of years, what kind of threw things out of balance was an instability created by, I think one of the triggers was the letter that the concerned reviewers sent to Congress and the President. That created some real difficult management challenges, which was reflected in a change in perspective on industry, on ability to have communications, open communications through the process, and it really was troublesome. At this point, to my knowledge, all of those claims from the concerned scientists or reviewers have been refuted. There's been no wrongdoing on anybody's part in the FDA, and I hope that we can now try to move forward beyond that and regain the management structure that was helpful in trying to allow managers to move the review process forward and keep it balanced and reasonable, and hopefully we'll have an opportunity to, you know, see that momentum regain.
Bill, you had some thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree with most of what Josh has said. I mean, I think industry has a strong desire and a strong incentive to develop safe products. I have yet to meet a company that didn't want to develop a safe product, or if they didn't want to, they weren't in business very long. So I have no doubt about that aspect. I think there are a lot of common themes among those who have criticized the program, getting, you know, we've talked about them, getting innovative products to market quickly and safely. I think everyone wants that. All the stakeholders want that.
You mentioned earlier, Bill, that the agency went through a process to talk about some of these incoming complaints and decided on a two-pronged approach to dealing with them. Can you describe exactly what that process of assessing these complaints looked like? I mean, is there a standing committee, or is it an ad hoc group, or does it go to a docket and sit there until it reaches a certain height from the floor? Or exactly what is it that goes on behind the doors there?
Yeah, well, I can't comment specifically about the formation of the two groups because I wasn't at FDA when the decision was made to undertake these. But I can talk about the process by which the 510K program was reviewed, and there were well over 100 employees who were involved in a number of working groups. It's all described in the 510K report. The people at the Device Center decided where the problem areas were. They formed working groups. We staffed those working groups and gave people free rein to have discussions and conversations and come up with solutions to the problems that they were living with every day. Some of the problems are were interpretation. The language is confusing in the regulations or in the guidance, and it was confusing both for people trying to do their job at FDA and confusing for industry. And so those are some of the areas that were identified in the report. Some of them are resource issues, some of them are transparency and predictability issues. So, I think there are some common themes, and hopefully, as Josh and the others have alluded to, we can, come up with some fixes to the program that can help make things better.
I'll summarize this section or close off this section with a last question. I'd like each of you to just give your thoughts about it. Do you think there is a need for a different process for handling concerns about regulatory processes in general? Does there need to be something more formal or something different that would build in some of the stakeholders into the process? Ralph?
That's a very broad question, and I've thought about it. I think that the 510K demonstrates a fundamental gap or weakness that all of us have. We started talking, all of us, about policy changes without data, without information. And I at least have the silly idea that facts should drive decisions. I think we were trying to do things by anecdote. I think we have a challenge in taking any of these studies and understanding the purpose of the study and what you can use it for and what you can't use it for. And you get a lot of toing and froing because people are talking apples and oranges. I think we have a need for improved methodologies in studies in this area. I think that's a fundamental challenge that we have out there. So I think this is an example of a policy debate that we can learn from, so when the next one comes down the pathway, we can understand how to address these in a way that's logical, in a way that pulls all the appropriate stakeholders in, that relies upon information, data, facts, as compared to anecdote and opinion. And my real concern here is we're doing a ready, fire, aim because we lack data.
Josh?
Yeah. I think with regard to your question about stakeholder involvement, I definitely think that the question is, I think one of the more tricky issues to solve is how do you come up with a position on advancing a regulatory issue that is viewed as reasonable. And I think it's great to, Bill is a formerly practicing physician. It's good to have practicing physicians involved in this process because they understand the trade-offs that are made every day with their patients. And that's really what matters. Something cannot be perfectly safe. Nothing is perfectly safe. And physicians understand that they need tools to address issues that their patients have, and they want access to these things, and that they're not expecting the regulatory process to eliminate all possible adverse consequences. And I think that when you bring physicians into that process, you're going to help create a more balanced outcome, and issues that are identified by the review staff that may at times be on a tangent, not particularly meaningful or significant from a clinical perspective, can really derail the application process. So one place I'd love to see stakeholders, and those being patients and physicians, be involved. I think there's a great opportunity to find some way of having practicing physicians in that specialty, even patient groups in that specialty, kind of weigh in on whether whether we can proceed off this issue, how big an issue is this particular concern, and can we kind of get beyond it? Because the way it stands right now, there are certain objectives that are being held for companies, and I'll just use one example, let's say in the obesity space is a particular example right now, where the standard that is being proposed by FDA is likely to eliminate many of the new technologies that are trying to approach the approval process. And so we really need to ask ourselves the question, do we want no alternatives to what's being out there? Or are we willing to set some standards that are agreed to by physicians? Well, it's not everything we wanted, but it may be good enough, that allowed some of these technologies to get out there, iterate, survive, so that we can make progress and really advance medicine.
And one of the real benefits of the process over the last year has been the stakeholder involvement. I think, certainly from our perspective, we've gotten a lot of great, useful input from a variety of perspectives. We've gone out on the road. We had town halls. So even after this acute 510K process is over, I think you can expect to see those things continue. We will have town halls next year. And certainly welcome the continued input. And we'll find venues. We have public workshops, and I think that has been one of the more valuable outcomes of the process. I hope we don't have to do this again. This is the most comprehensive review of the 510K program since its installment, and maybe we can plan on doing this in 35 more years. But it's certainly not something we're interested in doing on a regular basis. But the stakeholder involvement and engagement is something we plan on continuing.
Yeah?
Steve, I think independent from the question of potential change to the system or a new system, I think what all of the studies have shown is that companies really act globally and go to Europe oftentimes before they go to the US. And so this fact by itself calls for further efforts to streamline, harmonize efforts, and learn from other systems those elements within the US statutory requirements that would work in the US context, and vice versa. So I would say there is a need to really foster and continue to push for a streamlined process.
Thanks.